It's okay, I'm not gonna hurt you. Hey! Hey!
That was the first time we're introduced to Kevin Garvey, the main character in The Leftovers. It's the end of a two-scene circle that introduces us to the central conflict of the entire show. Let's rewind. The first scene takes place 3 years earlier and depicts the departure, in which 2% of the world's population disappears. It's an abnormal, uncontrollable event that induces grief and loss. In the next scene, we see Kevin jogging. Even though it's not in direct response, like I pointed out in my review, The Leftovers primarily is about the mood and mindset of the viewer, so the scenes share a common emotional thread. Anyway, we get Kevin jogging, which is a normal thing people do to control their own well-being.
Okay,
Then this happens. An abnormal, uncontrollable event that induces grief and loss. Kevin's struggle to achieve normalcy and control spirals out from this central couplet. This struggle makes sense in the world that The Leftovers sets up. Not only does 2% of the population disappear one day, but this man can take away pain through a hug. When Kevin dies, he wakes up in a hotel bathtub and has to sing karaoke if he wants to live again. Pigeons and red lights apparently are signs that lead you to rigged roulette tables, and bagels can disappear inside this toaster. It's a crazy world, and people need ways to control their lives, or at least feel normal and in control. In the first season, characters accomplish this in different ways. Lori, Kevin's ex-wife, joins a cult whose goal is to never let the world forget or move past the departure. In other words, Lori embraces her new reality. Meanwhile, Nora, Kevin's eventual girlfriend, buys a gun to better control her personal safety and lives her life in such a way that she is not exposed to the pain she felt when her entire family disappeared. She doesn't even create an actual intimate relationship with Kevin. They don't learn how to communicate to avoid the potential pain of loss. Nora's brother Matt, a preacher, submits to God's plan and looks for signs. Those signs are the aforementioned pigeons and flashing stoplights, which lead Matt to a roulette table to place bets that win him enough money to save his church. It is never revealed if this was actually some kind of guiding hand or simply coincidence. Although if it was a god, it was one with a twisted sense of humor since Matt won the money he needed but was too late to pay. Kevin does not really have such a mechanism. He wants to be in control and return to normalcy.
I want you to call it off.
No.
But he doesn't really have a strategy for doing so. Throughout the first season, he begins to lose his mind. At first, it's just disappearing bagels, but it spirals into him kidnapping Patty, the leader of his wife's cult, in his sleep. After she kills herself in front of him, further demonstrating his lack of control, he reads this Bible verse at her funeral.
But he stands alone, and who can oppose him?
Kevin cries because the idea that he is part of some kind of greater design is both terrifying, as it means he will never have control of his own life, and potentially relieving, because it finally gives him a way of making sense out of the world and what's been happening to him, besides the explanation that he's been suffering a psychotic break. Of course, later he does run into Holy Wayne, a messiah-like figure who can hug people's pain away and has been stabbed and left to die in a bathroom. Wayne, upon meeting Kevin, offers to grant him a wish. Kevin actually embraces this concept, makes a wish we don't hear, and returns home to the normal family he's been seeking. Here is where we're hit with a 10-minute dialogue-free scene that features an ancient woman who gives birth to a baby and then is killed by a snake. My best interpretation of this is that it's meant to disorient the audience with something completely unexpected, weird, and sad, just like The Departure. Continuing that parallel, the snake killing the woman, who appears to not know at all why she's dying, is like The Departure. If that's true, then the way the woman dies indicates that the departure is either a random event or the work of evil, since snakes represent the devil in the Bible. The question is, does that matter? Then there's a time jump in which we learn Kevin and Nora have moved to Jardin, Texas, a town made famous because nobody departed. This happens because Nora was given reason to fear a potential reoccurrence and moved her new family to avoid the same loss she suffered after the first departure.
Our guess is that it's a matter of geography, places, and the richest data can be gathered from sites where multiple departures have occurred in the same proximity, like right here.
If you're right, then what? What does it matter?
People want to be able to protect themselves against a recurrence.
Again, this signifies Nora's desire to control an uncontrollable world. That's reinforced again when she learns about Kevin sleepwalking and she decides to handcuff him to their bed at night. Lori has since renounced her membership to the GR and is actively working to save people from becoming members, but her plan backfires and a couple that she believes she saved actually ends up dying. Even if the narrative the GR is pushing is false or damaging or bad, it is still a narrative. Lori is removing that and replacing it with nothing, which is even more harmful. As was demonstrated with Kevin, people need a framework to make sense of the world. After a few nights of being handcuffed to the bed for non-sexual reasons, Kevin gets bored and tells Nora he's been seeing Patty, even though she's dead.
I've been seeing someone.
Who?
Patty Levin.
This causes Nora to leave since she can't prevent Kevin from going crazy like she can prevent him from sleepwalking. This shows that Nora is still afraid of loss and cannot fully commit to their relationship. The irony is that in her quest to control her life and avoid loss, Nora is actually submitting to her own fear. In response to seeing Patty, Lori suggests that Kevin is having a psychic episode. Coupled with her being a psychologist, this helps paint Lori as a woman of science, something further explored in the third season. However, after reading the Bible verse, Kevin appears to be more a man of faith, so he follows a different explanation, one that requires him to die, wake up in a hotel, and kill Patty while in purgatory. While doing this, she tells him this.
Because on October the 14th, attachment and love became extinct. In an instant, it became cosmically abundantly clear that you can lose anyone at any time.
This is a summation of Kevin's dark side, his flaw. The fact that he has to destroy the woman representing that worldview is worth noting. The third season opens with another dialogue-free flashback, this time featuring some kind of religious group in 1844 that continually fails to predict the apocalypse. This is an indication of things to come, as Matt specifically, along with Kevin, Kevin's father, and another character named John, all at some point believe they have predicted when the apocalypse will come and are all proven incorrect. It also reinforces the main theme of the season and crystallizes the theme of the entire show, which concerns the stories and narratives we construct and impose on our own lives to give them significance or at least sense. These characters believe the world is going to end because it's a story they tell themselves. There are several examples of this in the finale, but the most telling embodiment of this theme is actually through Matt and Lori's conflict. They have constructed their narratives around opposite ideologies, and their science versus faith debate comes to a head at a certain point. However, it's the actual fate of both characters that's more revealing than any of their arguments. Originally, Laurie was meant to kill herself. All the signs were in the episode. Damon Lindelof and Amy Brenneman even confirmed it themselves. The analysis works either way, though. Throughout the show, Laurie saw the world through a logical and scientific narrative, and that worked with her main motivation, which was to help people. In the first season, she joined the GR because she believed people would be better off if they embraced their new post-departure reality. In the second, she attempted to save people from the corrupting nature of the GR once she had experienced it. Obviously, what she did in the second season proved to be more harmful than helpful, and in the first season, the only time she really helped someone was when she broke the GR's rules. This happens again in the third season, where Laurie spends most of her time trying to convince Matt and Kevin that Kevin is not a Christ-like figure who has to die to prevent the apocalypse. Like in previous seasons, Laurie is unsuccessful. This is what leads her to wanting to end her life. Her narrative has failed at allowing her to help others, but she has this conversation with Nora. This helps boost her confidence in her ability to help others, makes her feel obligated to Nora, and ultimately saves her life. Matt has his own struggles with his faith-based narrative. He essentially writes a holy book based around Kevin's experiences and travels halfway around the world searching for Kevin to prevent an apocalyptic event that he predicted, but that event never materializes. In the final episode, Matt breaks down and tells Nora this.
But most of all, I'm scared that I'll survive. Because if I do, how can I ever stand in front of a room full of people and convince them that I have the answers when I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about?
However, it is implied that Matt is also able to reconcile the shortcomings of his narrative. Based on what Kevin tells Nora, we can infer that Matt received treatment and continued to be a pillar of the community in Jarden. Like Laurie, he was pushed to the brink but was able to survive, at least for a while. In both cases, the characters' meta-narratives failed them, just like they failed the rest of the world in providing an explanation for the departure. The things that happen around us will not always fit a certain narrative, but Matt and Laurie's stories show the importance of adaptability in the face of a constantly changing world. This is seen with Nora throughout the show, and specifically at the end. After a 25-year time jump, Kevin finds Nora in Australia and introduces himself as if they only had met once, at the very beginning of the show. At first, we can't tell if Kevin is having a delusion or not, but either way, Nora chooses to reject the story that Kevin is trying to sell. Later, he reveals that it was just a story that he constructed to hide the pain and anger he felt because of how she disappeared. Then it's Nora's turn to tell a story, in which she reveals she actually traveled to where the departed went. She says she found her kids, that they had moved on without her, and that she returned home. There's been a lot of speculation on if this is true or not, but Kevin immediately says he believes her. Kevin has returned to Australia every year to search for Nora. The last time we see Kevin before jumping forward in time is when he's in purgatory and he has to kill half of himself in order to save the purgatory world. Kevin destroys the part of himself that is afraid to commit to Nora for fear of loss. The two of them originally get together because they each believe they are irredeemably broken. In this episode, Kevin is able to destroy the part of himself that fears exposing his own vulnerability to Nora and to others that he loves. The ultimate point here is that the response to loss and grief must eventually be to return to openness, even if that exposes us to further pain. The ultimate point of The Leftovers as a whole, I believe, is that we only have control over one thing in our absurd world, and that's what we choose to submit to. We can submit to logic and science, to faith and religion. We can submit to the truth or to the people we love in the present. But in the end, we all tell ourselves different stories to explain things and make sense of the world, and it doesn't really matter what those stories are or if they're true. As long as we believe them, we'll be okay. Hope you liked that video. You can always subscribe if you want to see more of my stuff. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to get semi-regular updates, and I also have a Patreon link in the description if you want to really help the channel out. Thanks for watching.